So imagine winning a massive election, right? You win the vote, and then you just watch state lawmakers wipe your brand new job right off the map before your very first day.
I mean, it is basically the ultimate political collision. You have the actual mechanics of state government crashing directly into the results of a local Democratic election.
Exactly. So welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are pulling you right into a really high-stakes legal and political showdown that is unfolding in Louisiana right now.
Right, and it's a fascinating situation.
It really is. Basically, for 150 years, New Orleans has run this duplicate government system. They pay for two entirely separate court clerks, one for civil court and one for criminal court.
Even though every other parish in the entire state gets by with just one.
Exactly. Just one. So, Republican Governor Jeff Landry and state lawmakers finally passed a bill to slash this extra office. They want to merge the roles to save taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars and, clean up some serious local dysfunction.
But there is a massive catch.
A huge catch. A man named Calvin Duncan just won the election for that exact criminal clerk job, and he won with 68% of the vote.
Wow.
Yeah. And Duncan is a former prisoner who actually spent nearly 30 years behind bars for a crime he didn't even commit.
So he wins this historic election, and then the state steps in to eliminate the job.
You got it. So now, this fierce legal battle has erupted. It's gone all the way up to the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. The state is fighting to shrink what they see as a bloated government system, while critics are claiming it's a targeted attack on a local election.
The layers to this are just, they're incredibly complex. You're dealing with fundamental questions about how governments operate and what happens to voters when an election is basically erased retroactively.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack our sources on this, look at the conservative push to standardize local government, and really figure out what happens when a drive for efficiency just collides head-on with a historic election win.
Sounds good. I think we need to start by looking at the job itself.
Yeah, let's do that. Because before we get into the whole courtroom drama, we have to understand why conservative lawmakers targeted this specific office for elimination in the first place.
Well, to understand that, you have to look at how Louisiana organizes its whole judicial system. So the state is divided into 64 parishes. They function a lot like counties in other states.
Okay.
But out of all 64 parishes, Orleans Parish, which covers the city of New Orleans, is the absolute anomaly. It is the only parish in the entire state that maintains two completely separate clerks of court.
And a clerk of court, for those who might not know, is essentially the administrative backbone of the justice system, right?
Exactly. They process warrants, they maintain evidence logs, issue subpoenas, and manage thousands of case files.
So in New Orleans, you have one entire bureaucracy dedicated to civil cases like lawsuits and contracts, and then a totally separate bureaucracy just for criminal cases.
Right. While literally every other parish just executes both of those functions out of a single unified office.
Which seems like a recipe for a mess. I mean, when you separate those duties into two different offices, you inevitably create friction.
Oh, absolutely. In New Orleans, the civil and criminal clerks even operate out of different physical buildings.
Wait, really? Separate buildings?
Separate buildings, yeah. And they utilize entirely different computer software and case management systems.
Oh, man.
So when you have two separate bureaucracies doing all this administrative work, you just get a severe lack of communication. It creates this huge maze for citizens and lawyers trying to navigate the system. Plus, it demands duplicate resources to keep both running.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. It's like discovering one specific fast food franchise is paying two separate store managers to do the exact same job as every other branch.
That's a good way to look at it.
Right. At some point, corporate steps in and says, why are we paying double? So conservative lawmakers looked at this 150-year-old system and decided it was time to pull the plug.
Yeah, Republican State Senator Jay Morris authored the bill to consolidate the offices. His central argument is all about standardizing the government.
Right, bringing New Orleans in line with the rest of the state.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, conservatives view this as a textbook case of cutting wasteful government spending and enforcing statewide standards.
And they have the stats to back that up, too. According to the legislative auditor, this merger is projected to save the state about $27,000 and save the city around $233,000.
Yeah. And Governor Landry has been really vocal about this. He argues this is a necessary move to clean up a local judicial system that, in his words, has been plagued by dysfunction and corruption for years.
So administratively, trimming government waste makes total sense on paper.
It does.
But the complication here isn't the math, it's the timeline. That is exactly what ignited this huge political firestorm.
Right, because they didn't just eliminate an empty desk, they eliminated a position that a specific candidate had just campaigned for and won.
And that candidate is Calvin Duncan. We need to talk about his story, because his connection to the criminal justice system is deeply personal.
It spans decades. So back in 1982, when Duncan was 19 years old, he was arrested for a murder he knew nothing about.
Just 19.
Yeah. He was wrongfully convicted, and he was sent to Angola State Penitentiary, which is one of the most notorious maximum security prisons in the country. He spent almost 30 years locked up there.
That is just unimaginable. But while he was locked up, our sources show he didn't just sit there. He actually taught himself the law.
He did. He became a prominent jailhouse lawyer, so he studied legal precedents, learned the rules of criminal procedure, and started drafting appeals for himself and for other inmates.
And during that time, he saw firsthand how this broken, duplicate administrative system impacts actual people. Getting access to your own case files from the clerk's office was a nightmare.
Right. The fragmented system made it incredibly difficult for incarcerated people to review their evidence or track their appeals. That frustration basically became his main motivation.
So he finally gets released in 2011 with the help of the Innocence Project. By 2021, he is officially exonerated. The courts found evidence that police had actually lied during his original case.
And after all that, he earns a law degree in 2023.
Incredible.
And he decides to run for the specific office that handles criminal records to fix the exact bureaucracy that had trapped him.
And the voters clearly loved it. He crushed the incumbent in November, winning 68% of the vote in a predominantly black Democratic city.
But here comes the catch. The bill to consolidate the offices wasn't even introduced until the spring legislative session.
Which is months after Duncan had already won.
Exactly. Just weeks before he was scheduled to be sworn in.
And this is where the Democratic pushback comes in. Critics are pointing out the timing proves this isn't just about administrative efficiency. They argue it totally disenfranchises the voters who showed up for him.
Yeah, they view it as a targeted political maneuver to block a reformer from taking power.
They also push back on the financial argument. Our sources note that the legislation actually shifts about $1.1 million in state expenditures directly onto the parish.
Right.
Plus, you still have two different case management systems in two separate buildings. Merging that is going to be a massive logistical and financial headache for the local government.
That cost shift is a huge point of contention. Changing the title on a door doesn't magically integrate decades of files.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If a system has been broken and duplicating costs for 150 years, does winning an election mean lawmakers just shouldn't fix it? I mean, do we keep wasting tax dollars just because of bad timing?
And that question right there is the philosophical core of this whole conflict. The state definitely has the legal right to organize its courts and cut bloat.
Right.
But the optics of abolishing a role won by an exoneree right after he wins makes it incredibly contentious. It creates this huge tension between state sovereignty and local representation.
Which brings us to the legal seesaw. This collision course landed right in federal court, and things moved incredibly fast.
Lightning fast.
So let's look at the timeline. According to the Secretary of State, a clerk candidate basically just needs to be a resident of the state for 2 years and domiciled in the parish for 1 year.
Simple enough.
Right. Duncan played perfectly by the rules. He met the qualifications, won the race, and was set to be sworn in on a Monday morning in early May.
But Governor Landry signed the consolidation bill into law on the Thursday right before that, abolishing the office just 4 days before Duncan's first day.
4 days. So Duncan immediately files a federal lawsuit. And on Sunday, literally the day before the swearing in U.S. District Judge John DeGrevels stepped in and blocked the state law.
He issued a temporary restraining order. And his ruling is really interesting. He didn't say the state couldn't abolish an office.
Right, they have that authority.
Yeah, they can restructure. But he ruled that doing it this way, at this specific time, violated Duncan's constitutional rights to due process.
Basically saying, you can change the rules of the game, but you can't change the outcome of a game that was already played. The voters cast their ballots under the old rules.
Exactly.
So because of that Sunday order, Duncan actually took office on Monday morning. He walked up the steps, took the oath, sat at his desk, and declared it a testament that, quote, God is still in control.
But his time in office lasted, what, just a few hours?
Barely even that.
Yeah.
The state immediately appealed, arguing the lower court order only threatened chaos. And by 9:30 a.m., that exact same Monday morning, The conservative Fifth U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals intervened.
They granted a stay, which froze the lower court's ruling.
Right, suspending the judge's protection. So the new consolidation law immediately took effect. Duncan literally had to step down and cease acting as clerk right after sitting at his desk.
Which created just an incredibly chaotic morning for the New Orleans justice system. You have employees and judges dealing with legal whiplash.
So what does this actually mean for the voters in the city? I mean, crimes are still happening. Warrants need processing. Who is actually running the criminal records right now while the courts fight this out?
Well, under the new state law, the existing civil clerk is supposed to absorb all those duties.
Yeah. So Chelsea Richard Napoleon, the civil clerk, is just doing both jobs now?
Yes. She is legally responsible for managing both operations. She has to make sure the courts keep running, dockets are maintained, all of that, while the broader constitutional question gets settled above her.
One person managing two incompatible bureaucracies in two different buildings.
Precisely. It is a monumental task.
That is wild. So to wrap up this deep dive, this really isn't just a story about one man's job. This is a fundamental clash over how you fix a broken system.
Yeah, it really is.
On one side, you have this common-sense conservative push to eliminate 150 years of government bloat, standardize the rules, and save taxpayers' money.
And on the other, you have local voters who feel their voice was just totally silenced right after a historic election.
Exactly. It's the state's drive for efficiency versus the city's democratic vote. So we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today.
Think about your own local government.
Yeah. If a specific office in your town was proven to be totally duplicate, wasteful, and inefficient, should the state have to wait 4 whole years to fix it just because someone just won an election for it?
Or do taxpayers deserve immediate relief from government bloat, no matter how bad the timing looks?
It's a tough question. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.